Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. That's what Judge Judy would say about this trial. That's what Judge Judy Scheindlin would say if she saw what just happened in the most explosive celebrity trial of 2025. Sean Diddy Combs, hip-hop mogul, music empire builder, accused of running a criminal enterprise designed to fuel his darkest desires. 6 weeks of testimony, 34 witnesses, hours of sexually explicit videos shown to a jury, and at the end of it all, a verdict that shocked the nation. But what if America's most no-nonsense TV judge had been sitting on that bench? What if Judge Judy, the woman who's been humiliating liars on national television for 25 years, had control of this courtroom? Today we're putting the Diddy trial under the Judge Judy microscope. And trust me, she would not have held back. What would Judge Judy do? Sean Combs, known to the world as Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, or simply Puffy, built an empire. Bad Boy Records, Sean John Clothing, Sirok Vodka, a net worth estimated at nearly $1 billion. But behind the champagne toasts and red carpet glamour, prosecutors say there was something sinister. On May 5, 2025, Diddy's federal criminal trial began in a Manhattan courtroom. The charges? Racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. The prosecution's theory was brutal, that Combs ran a corrupt criminal enterprise using his wealth, his influence, and his security team to drug women, physically abuse them, and force them into what he called freak-offs. Freak-offs were marathon sex performances, sometimes lasting days, where Combs allegedly coerced women into having sex with male prostitutes while he watched, masturbated, and recorded everything. The star witness? Cassie Ventura, his ex-girlfriend, the woman who dated him on and off for over a decade. The woman who, in November 2023, filed a civil lawsuit that cracked open the entire case. By the time she took the stand in May 2025, 8 months pregnant, the world was watching, and Judge Judy? She would have been taking notes. The trial begins. Cassie takes the stand day one. The courtroom was packed. Diddy's family sat in the front row, his mother, his sister, his 6 adult children, all dressed immaculately, all watching in silence as Cassie Ventura walked to the witness stand. For nearly 20 hours over 4 days, Cassie described a relationship that started with love and ended in horror. She testified about the physical abuse, the black eyes, the times Diddy would kick her, drag her, punch her in the face while she cowered in hotel hallways. And then, the freak-offs. Cassie told the jury about the first time Diddy demanded she participate. He introduced her to a male prostitute. He gave her drugs, ecstasy, cocaine, GHB. He told her what to do. And when she hesitated, when she tried to say no, he made her feel like she had no choice. The jury saw surveillance video from March 5, 2016, the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. Cassie tries to leave. Diddy chases her down the hallway, shirtless, towel wrapped around his waist. He grabs her. He throws her to the ground. He kicks her, twice. When a security guard found them, he said Diddy gave him a devilish stare. Cassie had a purple eye. Cassie cried on the stand. She told the jury she would give back the $20 million civil settlement, every cent, to have never endured a single freak-off. Now, imagine Judge Judy hearing this testimony. Judge Judy said, "When you can't look at me in the eye and tell me the story, that means you're lying." Judge Judy has heard thousands of cases. She's seen every kind of manipulation, every kind of excuse. And one thing she cannot stand? People who hurt women and then pretend they're the victim. If Judge Judy had been presiding over this trial, Cassie wouldn't have spent 4 days on the stand. Why? Because Judge Judy would have shut down the defense's endless cross-examination in about 30 seconds. Judge Judy said, "Two people can't talk at the same time. When my mouth is moving, it means you need to be quiet, but here's where things got messy." Diddy's defense team, led by criminal attorney Mark Agnifilo, didn't deny that Diddy had an unconventional sex life. They didn't deny that his relationship with Cassie was toxic. What they denied was that it was criminal. The defense strategy was simple: show the jury that Cassie was a willing participant, that she loved Diddy, that she initiated freak-offs, that she asked for them, and to prove it, they bombarded the jury with text messages, messages where Cassie told Diddy she wanted to have fun, messages where she discussed planning freak-offs with him, messages where she said, "I love you." The defense attorney, Ana Estevao, questioned Cassie aggressively. "Didn't you suggest this freak-off? Didn't you encourage it?" Cassie pushed back. She testified that when you're with someone for so long, you know what they mean when they text certain things. But the damage was done. The jury saw affection. They saw messages that could be interpreted as consensual. And this is where Judge Judy would have lost her patience. Judge Judy said, "I eat morons like you for breakfast. You're gonna be crying before this is over." See, Judge Judy doesn't care about text messages. She cares about patterns. She cares about power dynamics. And she cares about the truth. If you're in court claiming a relationship was consensual, but there's video of you kicking your girlfriend in a hotel hallway, Judge Judy's not buying it. Judge Judy said, "Beauty fades. Dumb is forever." She would have looked Diddy dead in the eye and said, "Sir, you spent 20 years building an empire. You have assistants who procure drugs. You have security who clean up your messes. You have unlimited money and power. And you're telling me this woman, who you signed to your record label, who you controlled financially, had the freedom to say no to you? I don't believe you." As the trial continued, the evidence got stranger and more damning. Federal agents testified about raiding Diddy's homes in March 2024. What they found was disturbing: over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant, lingerie, platform heels, sex toys, and just feet away from where all of this was stored, 2 AR-15 assault rifles with defaced serial numbers. Prosecutors argued the guns were a threat, a reminder to victims that Diddy could be violent if they didn't comply. Then came the hotel records. The jury saw invoice after invoice. Hotels charging Diddy for property damage. One Beverly Hills hotel, $500 for drape and carpet damage. Another in 2015, $950 for linen damage, deep cleaning. And the big one? In October 2012, Diddy's American Express card paid $46,786 to the Intercontinental New York Times Square for penthouse damage. What kind of freak-off causes $46,000 worth of damage? Judge Judy would have had a field day with this. Judge Judy said, "Sir, the table didn't have 3 beers and then get up and move." She would have turned to Diddy's attorney and said, "Counselor, you're telling me your client spent nearly $50,000 destroying a hotel room, and you want me to believe this was just fun? That nobody was being coerced? That nobody was terrified? That's ridiculous. Next!" And that's exactly what she would have said, because Judge Judy doesn't tolerate nonsense. She doesn't tolerate excuses. And she certainly doesn't tolerate rich men who think they can buy their way out of consequences. This is my courtroom, and I can say what I want. When you become a judge, we will talk. Cassie wasn't the only witness. Over 6 weeks, 34 people testified against Diddy. There was Jane, pseudonym for another ex-girlfriend who dated Diddy from 2021 to 2024. She described being financially coerced into freak-offs. She testified that Diddy beat her and then, immediately after, forced her to have sex with a male escort. The prosecutor, Maureen Comey, called Jane's case the most clear-cut example of sex trafficking. Then there were the assistants: Jonathan, Perez, Capricorn Clark, Brendan Paul. These were the people who worked for Diddy, who scheduled the freak-offs, who booked hotel rooms, who bought drugs, who cleaned up the mess. One assistant testified about using his company card to buy outfits for Jane at sex stores. Another testified about finding a sex tape on a business iPad. Capricorn, Clark broke down on the stand. She cried as she described begging Diddy for forgiveness after he accused her of betraying him. She said she was desperate to get her life back. And then there was the testimony about Kid Cudi. Rapper Kid Cudi dated Cassie briefly in 2011. When Diddy found out, he was furious. According to testimony, Diddy showed up at Kid Cudi's house and threatened to kill him. Weeks later, a Molotov cocktail was thrown through the roof of Kid Cudi's Porsche. Kid Cudi testified about it. He showed up to court wearing a leather jacket with a cigarette dangling from his lip. He described Diddy as a Marvel supervillain. The jury heard it all. Every sordid detail, every threat, every lie. And through it all, Diddy sat stone-faced. His hair had turned gray during the trial. He wore sweaters in shades of blue and cream. Every morning, he'd look for his family in the courtroom, flash them a smile, tap his chest, blow them a kiss. But the evidence kept piling up. Text messages, hotel records, testimony from escorts, testimony from security guards, testimony from women who said they were drugged, beaten, and coerced. And in the end, the defense called 0 witnesses. Diddy himself chose not to testify. If this had been Judge Judy's courtroom, she would have made him testify. Judge Judy said, "Don't try to figure out where I'm going. You're never going to figure out where I'm going." Judge Judy has a gift for getting to the truth. She asks questions that seem simple, but are actually traps. She watches body language. She listens for hesitation. And if Diddy had tried to stay silent in her courtroom, Judge Judy said, "You want to say something to me? Are you sure you want to say something to me? No, you don't. Believe me, that is the last thing you want." On July 2nd, 2025, after 13 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom was silent. Diddy's family held hands. Prosecutors sat rigid, waiting. The jury foreman stood, not guilty, on the most serious charges, racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Each count carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Diddy dropped to his knees. He placed his hands together in prayer. He turned to the jury box and nodded in gratitude. His family erupted into applause. The verdict was a rejection of the prosecution's theory that Diddy ran a criminal enterprise. The jury didn't believe he was a sex trafficker, but they did believe he transported women across state lines for prostitution. So what does that mean? It means the jury believed Diddy paid for sex. They believed he flew women to different cities for freak-offs, but they didn't believe he forced them. And this is where Judge Judy would have had questions. Lots of questions, Judge Judy said. "If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory." Judge Judy would have asked the jury. "You saw the hotel surveillance video. You saw him kick his girlfriend. You heard testimony about threats, about violence, about drugs, and you're telling me he didn't use force?" She would have reminded them, sex trafficking doesn't require someone to say no. It can also involve getting someone to say yes through illegal means, like force, fraud, or coercion. In Judge Judy's courtroom, the standard is different. She doesn't need beyond a reasonable doubt. She needs what makes sense. And based on the evidence, Diddy using his power, his money, and his threats to coerce women into sex, that makes sense, Judge Judy said. I'm not going to waste another second on this case. Between the two of you, I doubt I could put together a 3-digit IQ. The Diddy trial didn't just dominate headlines. It sparked a national conversation about power, about consent, about what happens when wealth and fame shield men from accountability for decades. On social media, people were divided. Some celebrated the not guilty verdicts as a win for Diddy. Others were furious, saying the jury failed the victims. But one thing was clear. This trial changed how we talk about coercion in relationships. Cassie Ventura became a symbol of survival. Despite being cross-examined for days, despite having her text messages picked apart, despite reliving her trauma on a public stage, she told her truth. And that truth inspired other women to come forward. As of October 2025, more than 80 people have filed sexual assault lawsuits against Diddy. More are expected. If Judge Judy were commenting on this case today, she'd probably say something like this. Judge Judy said respectfully, "You want to know what I think? I think this man spent 20 years getting away with behavior that would land anyone else in prison. I think he used his money, his lawyers, and his celebrity to intimidate women into silence. And I think this verdict, these 2 guilty counts, are just the beginning, because the truth always comes out. Always. And when it does, you better be ready to face it." So what would Judge Judy do if she presided over the Diddy trial? She'd cut through the noise. She'd ignore the celebrity. She'd focus on the facts. She'd look at the hotel surveillance video and see a man who beats women. She'd look at the text messages and see a pattern of manipulation. She'd look at the baby oil, the guns, the hotel damage bills, and see a lifestyle built on excess and control. And she'd deliver a verdict in about 30 seconds. Judgment for the plaintiff. Your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all. Goodbye. Because in Judge Judy's world, there are no gray areas. There's right and there's wrong. And when you spend decades abusing your power, you're wrong. The Diddy trial may be over, but the reckoning has just begun. And somewhere Judge Judy is probably shaking her head, thinking. Judge Judy said iconic line. "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining." Subscribe for more legal breakdowns and courtroom drama.